If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreons out there. If you like bonus content, you want some extra Skiba News Nation stuff, please go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
With the son of the legendary Rob Skiba. Jeremiah Skiba, what's up?
With my great and insightful co-host, Mr. Jake Graham. It's like I don't even want to wake up.
He's on a quest for truth.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, howdy, hey.
What's up, man?
Hey guys, what is up? Hey everybody. Hey Opa.
Hey, howdy, hey.
All right.
Well, we
Tonight.
got some. What do we got? What do we got, Jake, on the Skiba News Nation family exclusive live? I'm trying to think of another word I can put in there that makes it sound grand and awesome.
Well, it is Grant, and it is awesome. I'm Jake Grant, so we're all good there. But listen, we have some interesting news stories. Of course, we're trying to start to do more live streams during the week for all of you who are tuning in right now. This is so that we can alleviate some of the time constraints of our Friday episode. There's so many news stories that come up on a weekly basis. And so we want to be able to talk about these pressing news stories and these topics and still keep a digestible 2.5 hour show on Fridays. You know what I mean? So we have some really great stuff we can go ahead and dive into, and make sure, guys who are joining us in the live chat, please leave your comments during this live interactive show. We're actually live here, so we will add your comments to the show. Drop us a comment. If you're joining us, drop us a like, share it out so you can have fun with all the friends and family you might want to be interacting regarding this content for. And yeah, let's get into it. All right.
Do it.
All right. So this week, of course, I see already Opa and Jeremiah have preloaded a couple clips regarding the new discovery under the pyramid. So we'll start off with my video that covers some of this topic, which is really interesting, and then we'll see what they have brought to the table for tonight's live stream. But guys, there is something under the pyramids, and we're going to talk about it today live on Skiba News Nation. Let's get into it. Oh, all right, let's see. Popping over here, and all right, so I wanted to start off this evening. We're going to start off with this little quote from a picture on Facebook, and it says this: "The plain fact is that education is itself a form of propaganda, a deliberate scheme to outfit the pupil, not with the capacity to weigh ideas, but with a simple appetite for gulping ideas ready-made. The aim is to make good citizens, which is to say docile and uninquisitive citizens." That's H.L. Mencken. And I thought that was really interesting to start off, because all of archaeological history that we know of, at least, or have been taught, is about to be challenged. This comment under here says, "We were taught to think and to ask questions, to go to the library and do our own research. We didn't have computers that gave us the answers. I guess we call this progressive thinking now. Well, I'm grateful for the older ways. I can still think for myself." So, of course, comparing and contrasting what this new digital age and AI technology is going to have. Here's another picture I wanted to share before we get into our show. AI systems have officially learned to lie to us, scientists warn. Very interesting. If truth is only what is uploaded, then it's very troubling that only biased information is being uploaded to the interwebs for AI to digest. I thought it had another little interesting comment over here. Yeah, because humans lie, and humans are feeding them the information and the data they learn and are from, well, it's from lying humans. It's a price to pay when you neglect God and go to make something in your own broken, fallen, sinful image. Oh, the irony, right? And so this is a foreshadow of what we're about to get into tonight with some of the topics, even known archaeological history as we've been taught regarding the pyramids and what all is going on underneath the sands in the deserts of Egypt. Very interesting. One more here. Researchers are training AI to read minds by decoding brain signals and turning them into text. So not only is AI lying to us, it's learning how to read our brains so that, what did it say over here? Let's see. Oh, imagine a world where thoughts are no longer confined to the mind. Scientists are now training artificial intelligence to decode brain signals, creating systems that could one day understand emotions, intentions, and even unspoken words. This cutting-edge research is powered by advanced neural networking and brain imaging technologies, paving the way for breakthrough in communication, mental health, and human-machine interaction. The potential is staggering. Think improved communication for individuals with disabilities or devices that adapt to your emotions in real time. Welcome to the future, where your mind might just be your most powerful interface. Oh, very interesting. Hey, yo, what's up, chat? Just shouting out. What's up, Chris and Drew? Shalom. All right, guys, now let's get into the pyramid topic. This is so interesting. Are you excited? All right, we're going to play this video.
This is Dabu7, and we have what looks to be a huge release of information pertaining to Egypt, the Giza pyramids, and what sits beneath them, apparently here, as newer technology has been used finally. Underneath the pyramid, it is exposing a massive structure. Archaeologists and scientists together coming out and saying that they have found these massive structures. They're spiral-shaped in nature, and seem to have something wrapping around them going all the way down, as you see in the left image here. They say that this goes down about 1.2 miles below the pyramid's base. And it shows that there is a massive substructure underneath the pyramids, called a city, call it whatever. I say that it is part of the power plant. I've always believed that these are power generation stations and that these were critical in ancient times. Thoth even wrote about it, but everything got dismantled. Question is, can they be started back up? I think so, probably. But this is the stuff that they wanted to keep hidden for all so long. We know that there's 0-point energy. Tesla showed us that you can grab power right out of the ether, right out of the air. And they shut that down rather quickly. But with these releases, are they turning in that direction of finally going to make a statement that, look, there is free energy, or these are what the pyramids were really? They weren't burial chambers, for crying out loud. After seeing this and finding this here is like explosive. This shows that there's something massive connected to this that they've lied about for all this time that goes way underground. We've all suspected it. We know that there's hidden chambers in that, from the Sphinx on down all over the place. But man, this has been the cover-up of a lifetime in terms of ancient knowledge and information. I believe this was a massive power plant, and they're starting to show it. I'm going to play a video now that's tied into this. I'll talk about this in greater detail on the live shows. Hope to see you there.
Briefly summarized, these findings allowed us to construct a 3D model of the entire complex. The examination of dozens of tomographical images obtained from different angles using Capella space and Umbra radars enabled a 3D reconstruction of most of the objects inside the Pyramid of Khafre. Below, we present some images from our 3D analysis. The analysis of the structures above Belzoni's chamber are intensely colored spots which can be observed appearing in all tomographic images taken from different angles corresponding to the internal artificial structures. On the next page, it says that improvements of the signal to noise ratio, revealing the internal structure of the 5 sets, consisting of 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof. So this is the raw pictures of the data that they used to create their model. And this is the model. So it reads the tomography with another cross-sectional line showing the presence of vertical structures. And if you think that was pretty mind-blowing, it then goes on to say, as observed in the 3 model below the ground level, so ground zero of the main structure, vertically aligned cylindrical structures extend for hundreds of meters beneath the Giza plateau. Notably, 8 of these structures, arranged in 2 parallel rows from north to south, descend to a depth of 648 meters, merging into 2 large cubic structures measuring approximately 80 meters per side. These features are illustrated in the topographical images and models presented. The paper then adds to that with some even more interesting detail, which is that the 8 cylindrical structures that have been identified in the tomographical image appear as vertical wells, which are hollow inside and surrounded by descending spiral pathways. It then goes on to describe the 3rd step, which is a lot of the analysis they've done based on all this data that they've collected. So they say the next phase involved analyzing the tomographic data to determine the full extent of the underground structures beneath the Giza plateau. The tomographic images clearly reveal that the structures exist beneath the plateau, extending below the pyramids of Khafre, Khufu, and Menkaure for approximately 2 kilometers below ground. So mind-blowing as all that is, there's still more to come, and this is just a little bit of the information that they have shared with us so far. So we can look forward to a lot more to come out fairly soon, and I will keep you posted. In the meantime, this is a look at some of the models and some of the data.
All right, fascinating. Upending all archaeological history we have regarding this area around the pyramids. Now, I know you guys have some videos on the topic. What are your thoughts on this discovery under the pyramids?
Well, I think it's pretty interesting. I just asked GPT just to see what it thought. And the last one, I'm not kidding, says buried tombs of forgotten kings or giants. Wonder why it says that.
Ooh, that's very interesting. I will say Chat GPT may be unaware of this recent discovery because the model is based on some different training methodology. So it might be referring to previous thoughts on underground burial chambers. But if you were to ask Grok, the X AI, it has access to ongoing current news, and I wonder if it would give a slightly different answer.
It's like what Glenn Beck said. Glenn Beck was the first person I heard talk about this, and he was like blown away. He said the same thing about the JFK assassination, that it was coming up with all kinds of things because it was a discussion. But it gave him the answer he wanted to hear, which is pretty scary.
Yeah, we do train the AI we interact with because it wants us to like it a lot. Opal, what do you think about this pyramid discovery?
Well, in one side of me, I'm a little skeptical because I'm not sure anything can, whatever radar or LiDAR or whatever they're using can really penetrate 2 miles down. I mean, that's a long way down, and going through, all of the earth and everything else to go down to get that kind of image. I don't know. That kind of blows my mind that they can go that far down. And a lot of other scientists have said that it's fake because it can't go down that far. But on the other hand, I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool to see some of the imagery coming back, because if it is a 2 mile deep penetration of that LiDAR thing, then it shows like what looks to be these just pillars that don't seem to be natural. Either that, or if it's some reason that the ancients chose to build the pyramid on this location because they discovered some kind of super special like formation coming out of the earth or whatever. My personal theory is that those cylindrical things are simply steps going down into the depths, and deep, deep down below the earth in those big square boxes are the treasures of pre-flood world like history. And there's just a secret door in the pyramid somewhere to open up the hatch so we can descend down deep into the earth. And I just speculate of what wonders and horrors and treasures lay 1 mile under the earth. Just because I was curious, I looked up what the deepest drilled hole is ever in history, apparently, and it's the Kola Super Deep Borehole in Russia, and it's the deepest human-made hole, and that hole goes down 40,000 feet, which is roughly 7.5 miles. So the deepest mankind has ever drilled in the modern age is 7.5 miles down. So, of course, you have 7 miles down here and just about 1 mile compared to what we're finding under the pyramids. So it makes me wonder, man, what is this discovery leading to? And are they ever going to like actually start excavating and getting down in there? How
I doubt it.
interesting.
I doubt it. I doubt if they're going to allow that. The only thing I could think they might do is go pretty far away from the pyramid, dig down, and then try to tunnel over. But even then, I'm not sure the Egyptian government's going to allow that.
Yeah, there's too much tourist money involved in having camel rides around the pyramids, if you know
Yep.
what I mean. So,
Yep.
Camels are mean, man.
I've never been around one other than maybe at a petting zoo. Have you had some bad camel experiences, Jeremiah?
Yeah, me, my mom, and my dad all rode camels in Israel, and they were not fun creatures. They try to bite humans. Do you know that?
Yeah, they're pretty nasty.
I always see those videos of the scams in Egypt where they convince you to get on the camel and they're like, oh, no, free ride. And then they basically get you on the camel and don't let you get off, to the point where you're walking around the pyramids and you're trapped on this guy's camel, and they get to the end and they're like, okay, $500, or I'm going to call my buddies over here. Oh, man.
Yep. Jeremiah's ridden an elephant too.
Mm-hmm. Nicer creature, for sure. Nicer creature.
Yep.
I see you guys had some other videos regarding the pyramids. Did you want to show any of this imagery?
Sure. This is from, I don't remember who it's from. But...
Told you, there are secrets hidden beneath the pyramids in Egypt. For many years, we thought we knew everything about its history and how it was created. So I love documentaries about history, and this is one topic I want to cover, because it's so huge that it might change everything about the history and creation of the pyramids. There was a research paper that was released in the middle of March, which goes over new data about the Khafre pyramid, not just what's inside, but also what's underneath it, below ground level. They would use a technology called synthetic aperture radar. They focused their research on the pyramid of Khafre. The data shows unknown internal structures. They found 5 structures located at the center of the pyramid above Belzoni's chamber, which contains a presumed sarcophagus mistakenly believed to be the pharaoh's tomb. They found a Z structure inside the pyramid. The 5 Zs appear to be connected by geometric pathways, and alongside these structures, additional secondary structures are visible from various satellite angles. Here's the analysis of the structures above Belzoni's chamber. Intensely colored spots can be observed, appearing in all tomographic images taken from different angles, corresponding to internal artificial structures. They would then use that data to construct a 3D model of what's below this pyramid. they found 8 giant hollow cylinders that would extend below to 648 meters, with these coils that wrap around them from top to bottom. These could be staircases or something else. The 8 cylindrical structures identified in our tomographic image appears as vertical wells, hollow inside, surrounded by descending spiral pathways. The data shows that structures do appear below the pyramid of Khafre, which is about 2 kilometers underground. Why do we have structures 2 kilometers under the pyramid? What were the purpose? And also, who built it? There's been a theory that these cylinders and coils were using the Earth's natural vibrations to produce energy or a source of power. Now, this data will change everything, leaving us with more mysteries about ancient Egypt. But here's a video from Jay Anderson about the topic.
Because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock. In fact, over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground. 2 kilometers. Massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far. Utilizing high-resolution radar images from Capella Space and Umbra, which are 2 private companies that specialize in satellite-based synthetic aperture radar imaging. This has allowed researchers to create a 3D model of the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, this model has revealed a previously unknown chamber with 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof, which in of itself is an architectural design unlike any previously documented in the Giza Pyramid. But the most shocking discovery lies beneath the surface. Below ground level, radar tomography has identified vertical cylindrical structures extending for hundreds of meters beneath the pyramid. There are 8 of these cylindrical wells arranged in 2 parallel rows, descending to an astonishing depth of 648 meters. Even more intriguing, at the base of these structures are 2 massive cubic formations measuring approximately 80 meters in diameter. The tomographic data suggests that these are vertical wells with intricate spiral pathways. Now, this design not only implies a functional purpose, but also a level of sophisticated engineering that completely blows the dynastic Egyptian model out of the water. I mean, the pyramid itself was already a massive red flag in the ancient Egyptian historical narrative. But now, with this discovery, I think it's become impossible to say that the Egyptian civilizations that we understand, that we've been taught about, were responsible for building these structures. And it doesn't even end there. The radar analysis extends beneath the entire Giza plateau, revealing interconnected structures beneath not only the Great Pyramid of Giza, but also those of Khufu and Menkaure. The subsurface network reaches down to a staggering depth of approximately 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers. This is not possible, given the standard historical and archaeological narrative given to us about ancient Egypt. Now, I'm hearing that there is more to come. There is a 4-hour presentation that's going to be released by the research team. This is what I'm hearing. That's going to go into every detail of their findings. This has essentially been a strategic release of incredible data ahead of time to get people interested. This is by far the most provocative piece of evidence for not only a potential technological explanation for the purpose of the Giza complex, but it also provides the most extraordinary evidence for a pre-flood era civilization that was flourishing in a way that we can scarcely comprehend. It's also possible that this spiraling cylindrical series of structures are staircases, and I can't help but think of the channeled writings of Thoth the Atlantean, the Emerald Tablets, speaking of a lost hall of records, a sacred hall of knowledge below the Giza plateau, the halls of Amenti. Could this be the lost hall of records from the pre-flood era? Now, obviously, this discovery is extremely controversial. It runs as a complete contradiction of the established narratives and status quo in mainstream academia on these issues. This will cause big waves throughout the academic and the wider world if they can fully evidence these findings. But the results so far seem pretty clear. There is obviously significant structural engineering taking place deep below the pyramids and the Giza Plateau in general. Has this changed your mind on the pyramids? Has this strengthened your position on what they might have been? Has this new discovery given you any new ideas?
So yeah, that is really big news. That's an amazing discovery when it comes to ancient Egypt. So their structures 2 kilometers below the pyramids, along with these giant cylinders with these spiraling staircases or coils. They're not sure exactly what that is, but who knows what's happening down there. But 2 kilometers and then buried in sand, and only the top part, which is the pyramid, is visible. When I see this image, it reminds me of a battery. What do you think? The history we were told about the creation of the pyramids or that it was made by simple men, laborers. But there's also the theory that aliens were involved in some way. But with this new discovery about, structures being under the pyramid 2 kilometers under the ground, along with these giant hollow cylinders, it makes you wonder what really happened back then. So anyways, that's it for this video. What are your thoughts? Tell me in the comments, and I'll see you next time.
I was watching that and I was thinking, you know what Trump should do? He should buy those pyramids and turn them into a hotel.
I'm sure Egypt would love that.
Oh, they would. If we're going to make Egypt great again,
Now there's 2 elements to this. Either I think this is a massive marketing ploy by the Egyptians, because I don't know if you remember, at the end of this year, the largest museum in the world is opening up in Egypt. And it's going to be in this giant pyramid-looking grand hall where they're going to show all these antiquities from Egypt. And they've been promoting it recently. And I wonder if this is just like, hey, let's let the conspiracy fodder flourish so that we can get everybody to show up to our museum. Now, on the other side of that, I really do think there's an interesting connection with subterranean structures and the ancient past. I think the things that we see on the surface is just but a scratch on the surface of what the ancients liked to do in terms of their architecture. And so there's all kinds of theories about Hollow Earth and subterranean secret dwellings and the cave people throughout history, and the secrets that might be hidden beneath the surface, so to speak. So I think that's my theory right now, is that if this is an antediluvian pre-flood structure, that they likely just bore holes all the way down and created these safety chambers to preserve secret ancient knowledge, or bury their Gilgamesh type figures to escape the worldwide flood. And then they put the capstone, which was the big pyramid, on top. And it's very interesting how this is coming out right now. A lot of people are just speculating on, is it big batteries? Are we talking Nikola Tesla style stuff? I think it's a little far-fetched. I do believe that there's a type of free energy and that the ancients understood how to access free energy, but it does look like to me that those spiraling things are just simply like staircases going down these giant shafts as they, like, if you think about the process it would take to dig that deep for the ancients, they would likely have a central shaft that they were pulling up debris, and then around the edges of it, they would just keep carving down a stairwell all the way down to, get deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I don't believe they made a mile-long giant electrical device. It does seem to me like an ancient secret burial or archive chamber. Maybe this is the depths of where Anubis, the dog god, judges people, and deep down beneath the pyramids, we're going to find the body of these ancient half human, half abomination, fallen entity creatures. I mean, that would be cool. But
Well,
just like Opa says, I don't think they're
ancient
going to
Egyptians,
dig.
they love their cats, man. They love their cats. So maybe that's where they stored all their beloved cats. That's what I believe.
Whoa, man.
Mystery solved.
I think you're probably onto something. I think instead of the Mummy the movie The Mummy, instead of that playing out, somebody's going to go over to the pyramid and lean on a wall and press this ancient lever or something, and the abyss is going to open up. And it turns out that the abyss has just simply been a subterranean race of cat creatures that have been propagating and inbreeding for thousands of years. And we just lean on that wall a little too hard, and it opens up this doorway that the cat monstrosities may emerge from the depths. And I think that's really where the apocalypse may start. I mean, who knows?
Toxoplasmosis.
Oh yeah. They will definitely be carrying toxoplasmosis across the world. So make sure to,
get a cat. Build up your immunity.
Build up your immunity so that you don't turn, let's just put it this way, a rainbow color in your sexuality. But anyways, any other of these clips you guys want to show, or do you want to carry on with another segment here, Jeremiah?
Looks like Hoop is at his doorbell. So we could just cover the next one you wanted to cover.
All right,
put both of those in there.
Sweet. All right, guys, make sure you're joining us live to drop a like. We are going to have fun on this live stream. We're covering news as it shows up. We're going to be talking about some cool stuff. But do us a favor, support what you like and drop a like. Now let's check out this next clip here. So apparently a Biden administration appointee was found dead at the age of 43. Former U.S. Attorney Jessica Aber was found dead after resigning 2 months after Donald Trump was sworn into office, right? So he wins the presidency. She resigns. And there's some mysterious circumstances surrounding this. We don't know if this was a cover-up. Some hitman showed up to take her out. It's all alleged. We have no idea. It might be natural causes. But it says, excuse me. So shortly before Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th president, the investigation is still underway surrounding the circumstances of her death, but she was a nominated President Biden appointee. And it's interesting that she resigned from her role just before Donald Trump stepped into office. Kind of makes you wonder, why would she give up that prestigious position? She led a staff of 300 prosecutors. So if she knew something, she was one of the most likely people to know something, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Definitely the Clintons.
Yeah, we've seen quite a bit of that lately. All the loose ends are being tied up, allegedly. So, hey, we had an Ozempic post recently. A doctor came out, and since Jeremiah covered this in our previous episode, I wanted to share this. A doctor is sounding the alarm over Ozempic, saying I'm losing my mind, memory, sight, speech, and hearing. I can barely walk or eat. And some of the comments of people who've taken this are saying, once you go on this, you have to take it for life. If you go off of it, you will gain all the weight back you lost and then have side effects. There's no easy way, folks. Just eat healthy and strength train.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get Ozempic face and all kinds of stuff. It's not good.
This other story talks about how Europe is preparing their populaces with World War III booklets warning on survival guides, mass evacuations, huge bunkers, and conscription. And they're preparing Europe basically for World War III. So let's see here. These are some of the representatives checking out all the different European countries. I don't think I had sound in this clip here. But let's see. It is very telling that Europe is preparing for World War III by passing out World War III survival booklets, right?
Mhm.
So they're warning of a coming Russian invasion contingent. The continent is rearming as it fears Vladimir Putin is going to overstep his bounds. Here's an interesting map they showed of the Baltic defense line, and they're handing out these little booklets with this information, kind of prepping the populaces of these European nations. Now, this is interesting considering the step back the United States has had in its involvement with NATO and the EU. It says the EU believes Russia could attack at some point around 2030 or sooner if Vlad is successful in Ukraine, and the Commission has said the bloc must prepare for a large-scale war with Moscow. Countries are preparing their citizens for a brutal fight, with calls for Britain to join the European nations already conscripting their people. France is the latest country to issue a little booklet. The 20-page booklet will give advice to French civilians on how to defend the republic in the face of an invasion by signing up to reserve units or local defense efforts. Interesting. Let's see here.
Vladimir Putin's chief crony has warned Russia to get ready for World War III. Top Russian MP Alexei Zhuravlov said that the male population must prepare to face a devastating global war in the next 3 years. Beating the drums of war, the hardliner, who serves as the deputy head of the Parliamentary Defense Committee, added that Moscow should not shy away from waging a war against the West. And he warned Europe to ramp up its military strength and be ready to fight a war with Russia. 62-year-old Zhuravlov is an MP for the Nationalist Liberal Democratic Party and is a leading TV propagandist in Russia. He is under heavy Western sanctions for supporting Putin's invasion of Ukraine. But this is not the first time that a Russian politician has threatened to spark a devastating war with the West. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev previously warned that Russia would be ready to use nuclear weapons and trigger World War III if provoked. Medvedev, Putin's second-in-command on the Kremlin Security Council, said it is a mistake for the West to believe Putin would never cross a line. Putin himself said in World War III when he said NATO would be engaging with Russia directly if the US and UK allowed Ukraine to fire their Storm Shadow and Attack-him missiles over enemy lines. But Ukraine has been using those long-range missiles to strike targets deep inside Russia after receiving a green light from the Biden administration. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer arrived in Kyiv to sign a historic 100-year pact with Ukraine. The Prime Minister, making his first trip to Kyiv since entering number 10, will likely face questions today over whether British troops will be involved in policing any peace deal. But his main focus will be revealing a 100-year partnership to rebuild Ukraine with the aid of British firms and private sector loans.
Man, look at all these European leaders just kissing Ukraine's butt, Zelensky's butt. It's really, really interesting. And I mean, they're kind of being forced into the position, of course, because since the United States has stepped back in its support for the conflict in Ukraine, I mean, of course, like, we're still sending supplies and weapons and all that kind of stuff. It's not full withdrawal of support, but it is interesting that now all these European nations are, as soon as Zelensky left getting his talking to in the White House, he flew straight over to Europe, and they just welcomed him and surrounded him like the new world leader of peace and progressiveness. And now they're all just groveling. It's crazy to see.
It's disgusting.
Oh, you're on mute there, Opa.
Okay, I unmuted you. Oh, he muted himself.
Okay. I was going to say, that in Europe's position is that the Ukraine is the buffer between Europe and Russia. So if Russia takes over the Ukraine, Russia's right on the border of Europe. And that's kind of like having Russia and Cuba. It makes you nervous.
Yeah, you can definitely see the motivation. I think it's interesting, the dynamic. Somebody here posted, read the Pike Mazzini letter. It's coming to an Earth near you. I am familiar with that letter. It's an alleged letter, But if it really was him, it's a very interesting. It talks about the formation of the 3 world wars and what each world war was intended to accomplish. But let's keep checking this out.
Kia said that there are unbreakable bonds between UK and Ukraine. The deal will also see coordination in policing the Baltic Sea, the Sea of Azov, and the Black Sea from Russia, as well as developing drone and space tech together.
So concerns from Norway of this as well.
Yeah, Norway, of course, you've got all of the ports going into the Baltic from the Ukraine, and that gets pretty close to Norway, and Norway gets pretty uptight about that. You know, they would rather have the Ukraine there as a buffer instead of having Soviet subs and ships and stuff right there across the Baltic from them. They're pretty close. I mean, it's kind of like, again, Cuba to the United States. It'd be, you know, the ports in Ukraine to Norway.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things we're going to cover regarding Europe going on currently. And just to make a quick kind of fun detour, well, maybe not so fun for this person who went through this experience. Have you ever heard of the opportunity for people to go and swim with sharks in cages? Have you guys ever wanted to do that?
Me,
Sure.
no.
Love
Absolutely
to.
Well, yeah, you might want to reconsider that, Opa, after this next video that came out from an experience somebody had that was, let's just say, horrific. Check this out. Now, this is in Mexico, and a tourist was in a cage as a great white broke through in some way and was trapped in the cage with them, and somehow they made it out alive. So if you needed any more reasons,
oh my god.
there's a great white in the cage with how big this thing is when it comes out. It is crazy.
He didn't rub his belly.
Oh, hell no.
Now you might wonder, was there even somebody in there? Like, what happened?
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Check this out. Somebody was down there going, this is the worst day of my life. Oh my goodness.
Boy, Jesus, somebody.
Yeah, so I thought that was a crazy video. That just happened recently. So if you need any more reason to not. Kind of similar to letting the shark in the very cage we're observing it from in with us, we have AI technology and monitoring devices in all of our homes. And check out this. It's Amazon is removing the do not send voice records setting from all Echo devices. Very, very interesting. It's almost like letting the NSA and the observers into the cage with us. Kind of a metaphor there.
You know, if you ask ALXEA, that's what we'll call it, if it has ever worked for the CIA or FBI, it'll say, don't know what you're talking about, or something like that, to that effect. Like, they won't tell you.
You want me to ask here?
Yeah, Opa has one.
Yeah, go ahead and ask.
Alexa, are you working for the CIA?
It's have you.
Amazon takes privacy seriously.
No, say, have you ever worked for the CIA?
And to view Amazon's privacy notice, visit the help section of your Alexa app.
Say, have you ever worked with the CIA?
Alexa, have you ever worked with the CIA?
See? It doesn't do anything, or it'll say, I don't know what you're talking about. Now you're on a list, Uppa.
Uh-oh.
Oh, man. I mean, we all know that they're using our devices all the time. If they wanted to, they can. And so all of your dirty little secrets are for the whole world's intelligence agency to observe and listen and all of that. So, let's just be cognizant of the fact that we are carrying their little helper in all of our pockets. And, it's not just Alexa, it's literally our Apple Watches. Eventually it's going to be our glasses. It's going to be the device that they plant into our brain to allow us to play video games. That will be able to be used. Oh, man. All right, so let's check out this next article. Apparently, the co-CEO, Han Jung of Samsung has just recently died at age 63. And as we have these big tech moves happening with the innovation of AI and blockchain, I find articles like this interesting. Now, it says he died from cardiac arrest, but when you talk about the leaders of the tech industry, when one of them dies, it leaves power vacuums, or it reveals that perhaps they needed to be moved out of the way for the new age of technology to advance. And we also had the death of a George Foreman boxer, likely because of our friend Miguel's comment. Here's another interesting technological advancement, since we're talking about technology. The new generation of fighter jet. Let's learn a little bit about this, guys, because
it's being named the
F-47.
Cool. The Pentagon says the new jet will have superior stealth and penetration capabilities that are essential in a potential conflict with China.
Could we have even more destruction because we don't have humans involved? I don't know. What do you see the future of warfare kind of turning into within this new world?
Connell, it's interesting you brought that up. The more technology, I'm sad to say, actually could potentially result in more warfare. I thought the 5th gens were pretty cool. Now we got 6th gen, man. This is mind blowing.
Next generation fighter jets.
The F-47 will be the most advanced, most capable, most lethal aircraft ever built.
The F-47 will replace the Air Force's F-22 Raptor and is designed to fight alongside drones.
An experimental version of the plane has secretly been flying for almost 5 years, and we're confident that it massively overpowers the capabilities of any other nation.
This comes as the President and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth denied reports that Elon Musk would be briefed on plans for a potential war with China.
The Air Force says it will be the most advanced, lethal, and adaptable fighter ever developed, designed to outpace, outmaneuver, and outmatch any adversary.
This F-47, just incredible stealth technology, weapon systems, and communication systems. So the fighter pilot is getting less and less out of the cockpit, and you're turning into more of a system monitor. But the technology is eye-watering. Based on the limited amount of information I know, this really is the next generation fighter. And the pilots are actually becoming less and less involved in the process. Some of the technology, you just sit there and watch these airplanes go to work. And to really creep people out, these airplanes are learning. They learn when a pilot looks at this or touches this switch, and they use that for future use. So the F-47 announcement today with the president and Boeing, probably going to be the end of manned aviation as we know it in the near future.
It's a technology that's new, but it doesn't fly by itself. It flies with many drones, as many as we want, and that's something that no other plane can do.
Announced today by the 47th president. It will replace Lockheed Martin's F-22 Raptor jet, which entered service nearly 20 years ago. The Air Force says it will cost less, be more technologically advanced?
As with a lot of these sorts of defense technologies, not giving too many details about specifically, what these planes might look like, though we do understand that they will include improvements to stealth technologies, speed, efficiency, those sorts of things. The president also telling us that versions of this plane have been secretly flying already within the U.S. for the past 5 years or so. So certainly a major development for Boeing.
Well, first, what I'd share with you is the president's decision to move forward with the F-47, or also known as the Next Generation Air Dominance Fighter, is likely to be the most important defense decision that he makes during his entire term. And I'll tell you why. Our entire way of waging war is involved with integrating the operations of all our service components. And that depends on control of the air, or what the military calls air superiority. And without that, we place our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians and their missions at risk. So no major military campaign can succeed without air superiority. Relative to your question on how the F-47 stacks up to the Chinese aircraft that have been unveiled recently, it's difficult to tell until they run up against one another. But I'm here to tell you, based on the designs, the technology, and the experience that the United States has, I can be pretty certain by telling you that the F-47 is the winner over what the Chinese have.
So this thing is $300 million a piece. It looks like we're probably going to get it in the next handful of years or so. Technology always advances, right? What's so good about this?
The promise of this F-47 is that it will be a generational leap of capability, even ahead of that amazing F-22 Raptor.
How?
And that includes more lethality, more speed, more range, additional weapons, and we're looking forward to seeing this with a fleet of aircraft the president promised to be delivered before the end of his term.
Do we have a sense, though, of what it could do versus what we can't do now?
I think it's really a leap of all of the good attributes of something like an F-22 in a more demanding and challenging area. You look at the Western Pacific and the area around Taiwan as an example, an extremely dense set of threats that now we need a leap of technology to be able to overcome.
All right, here.
Humans are at risk. I don't think they feel it the same way.
Any comments on the fighter jet, gentlemen? It's very interesting. It's 5 years old, apparently, so not that new, but they've been flying around test versions of it for quite some time now.
It kind of looks like they're re-engineering maybe UFO stuff. I don't know.
I just hope the windows and doors don't pop open.
Yeah. That would be very important going at Mach 29 or whatever. If they've been flying around this iteration for 5 years, I wonder what they're making now, right? I mean, this is a 5-year-old version, and they described some AI learning capabilities, so it like molds to the use of the pilot. And of course, later on in this interview, for time's sake, I just kind of jumped through. They also discuss how they are able to connect with drone like companions. So not only is it a super amazing jet fighter, but it has like drone capability. Like breakaway drones will pop off of its wings and go and like get the bad guys. But
well, from what I've read, it also can be flown without a pilot.
Oh, yeah, it is a drone. But it makes the guy who sits in the cockpit feel even cooler because he just kicks back and watches the destruction.
Yeah, but he doesn't even need to be in the cockpit is what I'm saying. It could fly without him.
If he could probably fly more efficiently, doing 10G turns and stuff without having to worry about liquefying the human occupant.
Right. I just wonder what Lockheed, who was it was Lockheed and Boeing who were competing with each other. And they just announced that Boeing got the contract. So I wonder what Lockheed's plane was going to look like.
Oh, that's a good point.
Also, right now we're waiting for the Navy to decide who is going to win the Navy contract for a plane, and Boeing is also up for that.
Somebody commented here, we know what Boeing was working on. They were working on those UFOs we've been watching. All right, here's another clip. It's the change of the social dynamics of Europe, and this is leading to the coming one world religion concept of Chrislam and the Islamification of European nations. Very interesting. Let's check this out. Oops, I messed it up here.
President has an air.
I'm not saying that
humans are at risk. I don't think they feel it the same way.
Alrighty, so of course, with all the immigration and such that's happened over the past few years, you have
multiple prophecies in the book of
a
Revelation
lot
predict a
of
one
people
world religion. Those who
moving
don't
to
follow
Europe.
this new religion or the one world government that's behind it will not be treated kindly. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus Christ. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. You may ask yourself, could that type of thing really happen in our modernized, civilized societies of today? Well,
it's already happening. There are areas in France where Christians cannot walk freely. President Macron has come out saying that the Islamist movements want to secede from France. This is a leader of a country telling you that he has lost control. He's admitting finally that he has lost control.
The one world religion, which will be backed by a one world government, will not share the ideologies of a passive sort of spirituality. What we will see is a religious army who has no issues with using violence to enforce their beliefs.
And how's the campaign to move Britain over to Sharia law coming along?
Well, this is in the hands of God. We do our best to propagate Islam. Well, of course it is. I think many people will see that democracy and freedom is no good for the British, no good for Afghanistan, and in fact, we need an alternative. And like man-made law, the Sharia is not something which gives you a right today to take it away tomorrow. It's good in all times and places.
Sir, to make this your freedom and democracy is absurd. Anjum, you haven't had a hair on your body touched by this government or this country. You haven't spent a day in prison. You haven't suffered one bit for your views. You're allowed to sit here right now because of freedom and democracy. In your so-called caliphate, you'd have me killed, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you have me? Am I an apostate that deserves death?
Under your caliphate, he would be executable, would he?
He would be judged by an Islamic judge.
The real danger we're running into in relation to this prophecy with what we're seeing today is the possibility of Catholicism and Islam joining together. This might sound like a total impossibility, but 10 years ago, men using women's bathrooms or competing in women's sports also
Are you guys having your video freeze up as well? I'm having buffering issues on my end.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can fix this.
But according to their own desires, because they have itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers, and they will turn their ears away from the truth and be turned aside to fables. Looking into this, it actually shocked me to learn that this uniting of Islam and Catholicism isn't even a new thing. On Catholic.com, in an article titled Catholic Tradition, Islam and God, they referenced St. Thomas Aquinas and St. John Damascene as both teaching that Catholics and Muslims worship the same God. If you read traditional authors interacting with Islam, like St. Thomas Aquinas or St. John Damascene, they criticize it, but you don't find them saying things like, Muslims worship a different God from the God we Christians worship. The more one delves into the tradition, the more clear it is that Catholics have accepted the basic premise that Muslims, despite what is flawed and incomplete in their understanding of him, do worship God. The document on human fraternity, which is old news, it was signed in 2019, but it brought Catholicism and Muslims to work together using wordage like, "we are all brothers and sisters." It's really just more proof on top of everything else that we're seeing that the possibility of these faiths merging together, at least on a certain level, is definitely a possibility. So if this is one way how the Roman Empire plays into the one world religion prophecy, who's going to be their strong arm to fulfill the prophecy of the martyrs of Jesus Christ?
I have seen that commercial.
We're already seeing
Common Sense
those
University.
willing to commit acts of violence against Christians, invading almost every Christian nation across the entire earth. This is Bradford, UK, where Islamist candidate Muhammad Ali Islam was elected with 77% of vote in Manningham district
Muhammad
on
Ali
Saturday. Dark times ahead. England has fallen. This is London. According to the research with natural growth, the number of Muslims in London will exceed the number of non-Muslims in 2045.
Allahu Akbar. Prayers at Eid al-Adha must be offered in congregation. The wide open space of Crow Park allows more people to do that safely. The festival, which celebrates Abraham's sacrifice to his God, is one of the most important in the Muslim year.
This is a roadway. This is a roadway. A roadway for emergency service.
If you like my content, please consider support. Private
So you have
behavior and
some very interesting social dynamics in Europe changing very quickly as you have thousands and hundreds of thousands of Muslims immigrating from the Middle East, changing the population demographic of not only Britain, but France and other European nations. And that is playing into some of the kind of the overarching political themes we're seeing play out on the world stage. And so I just wanted to share this video in regards to really the changing dynamic of populations and cultures clashing in Europe.
private beliefs. There's a long list of insane rules that would fall under Sharia law, but a few just to mention is that theft is punishable by amputation of the hands. Criticizing or denying any part of the Quran is punishable by death. Criticizing Muhammad or denying that he's a prophet is also punishable by death. A non-Muslim who leads a Muslim away from Islam is punishable by death. Sexual abuse towards women is permitted if they do not follow Islam, and any woman who tries to accuse a man in court of doing such a crime has to have 4 other men as witnesses to stand up for them. These are just a few. The list honestly goes on and on. We can see how these huge religious systems of the world could grow into fulfilling this one world religion prophecy. But what may be even more important to watch for is who or what will rise into the position of a one world government. What we know about a one world religion who eventually worships the beast and his image comes from Revelation chapter 13. This is where we also get a really clear picture of a one world government as well. The same little horn, Antichrist, in the prophecy in Daniel chapter 7 is echoed in Revelation chapter 13. The one world religion will grow out of and be accompanied by a one world government.
In September 2015, all 193 UN member states adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. They recognize that ending poverty calls for transforming our world through strategies that build economic growth, address social needs, and ensure environmental protection. To achieve this vision, 17 Sustainable Development Goals, known as SDGs, were defined as part of the 2030 Agenda. Join now and work together with the BMZ. Take responsibility, locally and globally, for humans and nature.
And we are just now where we move into the exponential phase. And I agree, artificial intelligence, but not only artificial intelligence, but also the metaverse, new space technologies, and I could go on and on, synthetic biology. Our life in 10 years from now will be completely different, very much affected, and who masters those technologies in some way will be the master of the world.
There's a lot of ways this.
All right. So the reason, okay. So of course, caveat to all of the segments we show on Skiba News Nation, we don't fully agree with every single thing somebody says. However, to create a full perspective of reality, we have to be able to digest through a lot of different content. So this guy had some interesting things to share about the Islamification of Europe and such. And this next clip, which I'm not going to show like the whole thing because honestly, like there's some better material out there breaking down Freemasonry. But this clip, some of the segments that I wanted to show our viewers is some language in the kind of the ethos behind Freemasonry that goes hand in hand with the same concept about basically a one world religion and the coming together of both Catholic and Islamic faith. And so that's kind of the motivation for showing you guys these clips, because it directly correlates with what's playing out politically in the world stage, and also those Albert Pike World War III letters and the conflict that comes from interfaith wars. So that's why we're covering this today. Let's see here.
You see the pyramid with the eye on it in the pyramid at the top, and Novus Ordo Seclorum, and this whole construct. Masons want to bring a global society, much like has happened in the United States. They want to unite the world, which the Bible talks about that, Chad, right? The coming New World Order, where every nation and people and tongue will worship the Antichrist, worship the beast, Revelation 13:5-7. But it's interesting, when I first became a Christian long ago and started studying Masonry, their magazine, their main journal was called the New Age Magazine. And personally, I don't believe, and I know Chad doesn't either, that you can be a Christian and a Mason at the same time. Not a knowledgeable Christian who knows the truth, knows what the Word of God teaches, and knows what Masonry teaches. Because, Chad, just to become a Mason, the very first degree out of the 32 and then the 33rd degree, to become a Mason, the first degree, the entered apprentice degree, you have to basically deny the light of Christ. You have to deny that you are in the light, because they blindfold you and they take you around the lodge, and you have to claim that you're in darkness until you come to Masonry and you're brought into the light. In fact, let me quote from just one of the many Masonic sites about this ritual. It says, the candidate, still blindfolded, they blindfold you, is then led on a journey around the lodge room, leading from the darkness of the west and the north to the place of light in the east, past the sun at its meridian, before returning to the place of darkness, until later in the ceremony moving to the light in the east. Chad, I know about you, and I know about me, and I know about almost everybody listening or watching, those who truly know Christ. You cannot say, I'm in darkness, be blindfolded, and then come to Masonry, which claims to be very spiritual. They have a Bible in the Masonic lodges. They have a Quran in the Muslim Masonic lodges, because it's all eclectic. It's all like, you can unite all these things. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. He that follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life.
About closing yourself off, taking oaths. Jesus made it very clear.
Yeah.
Do not make any oaths in Matthew chapter 5. And you have people taking these oaths upon them that ultimately are blaspheming our Lord and Savior.
Yeah, it's great that you brought that up. I'm glad you looked that up, bro. Chad always checks me, right? I love that. But even the oaths, many of them from the past, where they take their finger and they slice from one ear to the other throat. And this is what happens if you as a Mason divulge the secrets of Masonry. And that's why you have judges that have protected Masons through the years by because they're fellow Masons and so forth. And you can see how the love of money and power and putting different people in different places that are considered brothers of the lodge will be such a serious thing. Now, when I studied Masonry years ago, I was blown away reading Masonic, Freemasonic dictionary by Albert Mackey. He's one of the most celebrated Masonic historians and, full-blown Mason. And under G, because G is very common, you'll see that in their temples, it's used with the G and the compass. And there's a surface meaning, and many leading Masons like Albert Pike, right? Pike is like the most renowned Mason in the world. And he states that the symbols are for, the vulgar, the exterior people. But the deeper you get into Masonry, the more you understand the meaning. So a lot of early Masons that haven't really progressed, all you have to do is read their dictionaries. For some of these things, a lot of people in the world, it stands for God, or it stands for geometry. But Albert Mackey in his dictionary says it really stands for Gnosticism. And when you look at Gnosticism, and we don't have time to get into the cosmology of Gnosticism, but it basically teaches that Yahweh is the devil, God of the Bible is the devil, and the serpent and Satan, he's the liberator of humanity, and the devil is really the savior of the world. And Albert Pike, and I think this is important that we get this, Albert Pike is the Grand Commander of the Southern Jurisdiction of the Supreme Council at the Charleston, USA. And he claimed that the God of the Bible is actually the devil, and the devil is actually God. Totally Masonic. If you look at, for instance, Manly P. Hall. Manly P. Hall is considered the greatest Masonic philosopher of all time. In fact, some Masons will push back on that because his quotes are so damning. The things he said are so wicked, his admissions. So some of them will push back and say, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, he was a lot of the esotericism, the occult meanings of Masonry. But you know what? We don't regard him that highly. Well, I want you guys to look at this. This is the obituary written by the Scottish Rite Journal. Okay, now the Scottish Rite Journal is the official publication of the governing body of the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Freemasonry. And they state in their obituary of Manly P. Hall that he is, quote, Freemasonry's greatest philosopher. Now, that's a big deal. Now, he was the 33rd degree Mason, and I want to give you some of the things he said, which show you, like Pike, that he was a Gnostic. They're actually serving Satan, and most people are clueless about it because the light that they bring, Chad, is a counterfeit light. Satan comes, the Bible says, as an angel of light. And as I said, Jesus himself said, you brought up how Jesus said not to be swearing these oaths, but Jesus also, made it clear that not only is he the light of the world, and those who follow him will have the light of life. It's interesting that Jesus also made it very clear that when he spoke, that he stated that he did everything publicly. He did everything in the open. There wasn't a bunch of, he wasn't trying to hide a bunch of things. And he said, what I've taught you basically will, and even the judgment, everything will be shouted on the housetop, where Masonry is totally secret, which, by the way, is emblematic of ancient Gnosticism. They had all these degrees and initiations to where you could become hopefully one of the elect. So it has its roots in Gnosticism, even as Mackey admitted. But symbol and prototype of, he followed Blavatsky's teaching, who taught that Yahweh, the God of the Bible, is the devil, and the devil is the savior, and the only redeemer with whom we have to do. He was also a Rosicrucian. But Manly P. Hall stated this: in the secret teachings of all ages, he declares, quote, the serpent is the symbol and prototype of the universal savior who redeems the worlds by giving creation and knowledge of itself and the realization of good and evil. He states on the very same page the secret teachings of the ages. Quote, the serpent is true to the principle of wisdom, for it tempts man to the knowledge of himself. Therefore, the knowledge of self resulted from man's disobedience to the demiurge Jehovah. So he's just totally using full-blown 2nd century Gnostic language, Antichrist knowledge or language, I say. And Chad, this is one of the most chilling quotes from Manly P. Hall. This is from the lost keys of Freemasonry, where he states this: the day has come when fellow craftsmen, he's talking about Freemasons, must know and apply their knowledge. When the Mason learns that the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mystery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands. Catch that? The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands. And before he may step onward and upward, he must prove his ability to properly apply energy. Now, this is the false light again. You know, the scriptures warn in Isaiah 5:20 that speaks of those who would call evil good and good evil and put darkness for light and light for darkness. And that's what happens in the occult. That's what happens. That's what Satan does with the angel of light. That's what's happening in Freemasonry. And we're not talking, again, when you look at Pike, he's considered one of the most revered, we're quoting Pike, Masons of all time. Many believe him to be the most, influential Mason. When we're talking about Mackey, we're talking about one of the most celebrated historians. When we're talking about, we just quoted from the Scottish Rite in the obituary, we talk about Manly P. Hall, their greatest philosopher. So these aren't these fringe kind of guys. These are guys who are incredibly respected.
Yeah, and Joe, when I hear all this, obviously I'm hoping for people to understand this, and if you maybe even have friends that are Masons and don't understand how sinister this group really is and the stuff that they're doing, I was just like you guys. I remember, Joe, before I came to Christ, my grandpa telling me, hey, I have a friend who's a Mason, I could get you involved maybe, and he said, hey, he was supposed to be a pastor, and when it didn't work out, the Masons helped him, and immediately he owned a couple of stores and he was totally fine. And Joe, there's been this new thing that I've been seeing of people around my age, actually, where now it's getting popularized again. And the way you might be seeing it is just notice driving, specifically SUVs. I've noticed this, Joe, SUVs driving around. If you look, you might see that symbol that you're already talking about, right? The Gnostic G with the compass and all of that. It seems like it's right there in our faces. When it comes to people converting to this, and it is a conversion ultimately. And there is, Job's daughters and the Eastern Star and so forth. So there is a female, brand of this.
Okay, so I skip ahead here to this last little segment that I wanted you guys to hear. And this is in relation to the coming one world religion and the concept of the mixing of faith.
It's interesting. In fact, in the Royal Arch degree, if you divulge the secrets when you recite the Royal Arch degree, depending on the what you swear, they swear these oaths. One states that your head will be cut off, and your brains will be exposed to the rays of the burning of the sun. So it's not something many of those who go up to these degrees would actually want to divulge. And if they do divulge it, they state, and we don't have time to get into it all, but I got these great quotes where they say, make sure you cover your rear ends and you state things where you only give a surface knowledge. Now, it's interesting because, and I'm going to quote right here, some of the oath, one of the oaths that doesn't use your head being cut off, but of the Royal Arch degree. And you'll see what that name, why certain denominations, professing Christian denominations have stated you can't be a Mason and a Christian at the same time. I furthermore promise and swear that I will not wrong this chapter of the Royal Arch Masons or a companion of this degree out of the value of anything myself, nor suffer it to be done by others, in other words, if in my power to prevent it. It's pretty scary. I furthermore promise and swear that I will not reveal the key to the ineffable characters of this degree, nor retain it in my possession, but will destroy it wherever it comes to my sight. So they're called to hide the meaning of this degree. I furthermore promise and swear that I will not speak the grand omnific Royal Arch word, which is Jebulon, the secret name for God, which I shall hereafter receive in any manner, except in that situation in which I shall receive here in the lodge, which will be in the presence of 3 companion Royal Arch Masons. So you have 3 Arch Masons that gather together and they say the name Jebulon together, this omnific so-called a name, myself making one of the number, and then by incanting it 3 times 3 under a living arch and at a low breath. Now, Albert Pike himself said this was not only a mongrel word, but he said of this word that he admitted it's a cursed and beastly heathen god whose name has been for more than 2,000 years an appellation of the devil. So what's interesting is in 1987, Canon Brian Brindley of the Church of England, speaking for the Church of England, has reported in the Evening Post that Jebulon, he says, quote, is an unholy compound of the Hebrew name of God, Jehovah, with the heathen names of Baal and Osiris. So you're basically having a demonic trinity It's not obviously the true Yahweh, because he will not be part of a false triune God, but it also comports with Baal and Osiris. Martin Short, in his book on Inside Masonry, he goes into the Methodist inquiry on Freemasonry and whether Methodists could be Freemasons. And I quote, the serious objection for Christians becoming Freemasonry, quote, lies in the Royal Arch ritual, which reveals the Supreme Being's true name as Jabulon. Clearly, each of these 3-word syllables conform to the name of a divinity in a particular religion. The whole word is thus an extreme syncretism, an attempt to unite different religions in one, which Christians cannot accept. So,
all right, so here's what I was getting to. A lot of fat to get to the meat. This concept that the whole world is kind of being led to a type of syncretism, because really, when the basis of religion is a system of control, not only is Christianity, Judaism, and Islam all being used as systems of control, but it's really interesting how these kind of fraternal orders have led people to the understanding of mixing faiths, or to viewing all gods as the same God. And I think that's the interesting concept I want to bring out from this video, which was just the syncretistic nature. And this is in relation to the last video we watched of both Islam and Catholicism joining hands and kind of publicly proclaiming a brotherhood to usher in this kind of syncretistic one world religion, which is very, very interesting, especially as we have the rise in AI spirituality, kind of coming in alongside all of the old religions that are unifying, and just very, very interesting day and age to live in. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I think the Freemasons have a lot of interesting. It's just crazy how they suck people in. They suck them in young, and like I know somebody. I've told the story before, but they get you when you're young, and then they sell it to you as like a religion. It's kind of like it's kind of a cult, just like chiropractic medicine is a cult, which I might cover. Started from a cult and spirituality and all that stuff, which I could blow your mind with that, but I won't do that tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Let's see here. We had several other clips, but we're already getting up to an hour and 40 minutes here. Let me just see what we want to end off on for this last segment. Yeah, so I was going to show this really interesting archaeological investigation into Amenhotep II and this guy who basically found his channel is Expedition Bible, recently put out a video of him and his son going and finding what could have been the most likely candidate for the Pharaoh of the Exodus account. Not only was he buried with his firstborn son having died before him, which would align with the biblical narrative, but he was one of the only ancient pharaohs buried with boils all over his body, which, if you remember, was one of the plagues of Egypt. So that was a segment I was going to cover in today's episode, because in the face of syncretism, in the face of all of these conflicting narratives and man-made religions, we have to understand that there is empirical, verifiable truth, and there's a golden thread of truth that goes into the ancient past that we can trace to kind of boil down what is the most realistic empirical belief set that doesn't completely upend our trust in the ancients, but isn't tainted by the opinions of man and the religions of man. But with that said, I'm going to share this one last video here, which is the difference between scientifically proving truth and the concept of how do we accept and test truth, and it's in relation to the resurrection. So check this out. We'll wrap up with this last video, gentlemen.
Could you prove the resurrection scientifically?
Well, I don't think the issue is science. It's quite difficult to prove anything about a person or event in history. I think you need to understand the difference between the scientific and legal method of determining truth.
What do you mean?
Well, the scientific method is based upon showing that something is true by repeating the event in the presence of the person questioning the fact. In other words, the truth of an hypothesis is tested by controlled experiments.
Could you give me an example? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, well, let's say I say ivory soap floats, and you say I don't believe it. Well, I get you in the kitchen. In controlled situation, we get 8.5 inches of water in the sink, 82 degrees, and I start to repeat the event, just kind of, plunk, 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 and after 100 times, we come to the conclusion ivory soap floats. Now, if that was the only method, Tom, of determining what is or what happened, you couldn't prove that you went to your first hour class this morning. In fact, you couldn't even prove you went to the class where I was speaking, because it can't be repeated in a controlled situation.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
See, there's also the other method, which is called the legal method. Now, the legal method is based upon testimony. In other words, the verdict is reached on the sufficiency of the evidence.
Could you prove the resurrection scientifically?
So, anyways, I wanted to wrap up there because as we have all these interesting stories, the Egyptian pyramids, challenging ancient religions, talking about UFO sightings, all this kind of stuff. I think the difference between proving scientific, repeatable, observable truth and the legal method for establishing truth have to be considered, because eyewitness testimony and the things that we have handed down like a baton in a race from the past is really all that we have to stand on in terms of our perspective of history and reality as a whole. And there are some people that are so distrusting of the system, such conspiracy theorists, that they basically don't believe anything. And when you get to that point, it's a very unstable place to be because nothing is true. Everything is basically as you have to observe and define. And that's a very difficult place to be. But what I have a hope in is that from the ancient past, there has always been a love of the truth. And somewhere, somehow, someone has preserved that real testimony. Whether it's the scriptures that were handed down of the testimony of the God of Israel, right, or the testimony we have from ancient medieval times and the record of historical figures. There's a point where we have to test everything, but if you are so suspicious that everything has to be a lie, then you basically have to become the final arbiter of truth. And that's a very scary place to be because I know, I don't know all things, right? I'm not all wise and all knowing. And so whenever we are such conspiracy theorists that we don't buy anything, we leave ourselves only having ourselves to depend on. And that sucks. But anyways, with that said, let's go ahead and share about TruthorCon, Jeremiah, and we'll wrap up today's live stream.
All right, cool. I don't think we have the clip ready to go, but everybody go to truthercon.com and do you got to click notify me, and there it is right there. And if you go to all the way to the top, right when you click on the thing, you can a little bit more right there. Stay notified. You click that. And you fill it out, and that way we know who's coming and who's not. It's going to be epic. We just secured a location, hopefully, and definitely it'll blow your minds.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us for this special Skiba News Nation live stream. Make sure to like the video and share this with your friends or family, and we'll be back this Friday for our regularly scheduled Friday episode.
Adios, amigos.
Adios, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe. And also share with others so we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet.
Huge shout out to all of our Patreons out there. If you like bonus content, you want some extra Skiba News Nation stuff, please go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
It's overrated. No, I heard it's cool, but do you...
Son of the legendary Ross Jeremiah Skiba.
It's like they don't even want to wake up.